This man was trapped underwater in a sunken ship for 3 days and ended up surviving. In May 2013, a tugboat capsized after it was caught up in rough ocean currents off the coast of Nigeria. Unlike his crew members who were sleeping when the ship sank, Harrison Okene was in the bathroom. Except Harrison, all other 12 men aboard the ship died within just a few minutes. However, Harrison found an air pocket in one corner of the boat and held onto it for dear life. Harrison was stuck inside wearing just his underwear and with nothing to eat. In addition to hypothermia and starvation, Harrison was also losing oxygen inside that tiny air pocket. He later stated that he could hear the sharks devouring the dead bodies of his crewmates. However, a miracle struck for Harrison in the 60th hour of his ordeal. A team of rescue divers were sent to retrieve the dead bodies, and that's when Harrison made his presence known. The divers were quick to act. They equipped Harrison with an oxygen mask and raised him to safety. Despite his near-death experience, Harrison has a newfound love of the ocean and is now a commercial diver and dives for a living. Where did the myths of vampires actually come from? Like many myths, it is based partly in fact. Back in the 1700s, a blood disorder called porphyria became prevalent among the people of Eastern Europe. Porphyria is an inherited blood disorder that causes many vampire-like side effects, like the following: extreme sensitivity to sunlight, which led to facial disfigurement that caused the gums to recede, exposing the teeth, which then look like fangs. Next, blood drinking. Because the urine of people with porphyria is dark red, folklore surmised that they were drinking blood. In fact, some physicians had recommended that these patients drink animal blood to compensate for the defect in their red blood cells. Next, fear of the crucifix. During the Spanish Inquisition, 600 vampires were reportedly burned at the stake. Some of these accused vampires were innocent sufferers of porphyria. So porphyria patients had good reason to fear the Christian faith and Christian symbols. So vampires didn't exist in our world, but where vampires do exist is in the supernatural fantasy world of Myths of Moonrise. Myths of Moonrise is a match 3 puzzle and simulation game that includes vampires, werewolves, mages, and demons, where players can obtain heroes, establish their own territory of power, and have PvP confrontations. Click here on my profile to get it. This man can walk faster than most people can run, and when I show you the video of how fast he is, you will be shocked. This is Richard, a professional competitive race walker. He can walk 1 mile in 6 minutes and 39 seconds. That means his walking speed is over 9 miles per hour, which is over 1 mile per hour faster than most people run. For competitive walking to be considered walking and not running, your legs must remain straight and you must have 1 foot on the ground at all times. Before I show you the video of how fast he can walk, you may not be able to walk as fast as Richard does, but what you can do is get paid to literally just walk. I found an app that pays you for every step you take, and you're already walking 10,000 steps a day, so you may as well get paid. Click here on my profile if you want to get paid too. Okay, here's the video. This is what the last 24 hours of a death row prisoner looks like. First, the inmate is woken bright and early so they can make their last phone calls to friends and family, while the equipment in the death chamber is tested, including either the gurney straps or the electric chair's components. The inmate is then given a budget of $15 to $40 for their last meal, and they eat it at around 4 p.m. But in some states, prisoners no longer get to pick their last meal at all, so they only get the usual prison food. Next, both the victim and the condemned friends and family wait in the witness room for lethal injection. The prisoner is told to lay down on the gurney and is tied down by a team. Doctors don't perform executions because this goes against their code of ethics, so a special team administers the drugs. Sometimes inmates make a final statement, then the warden gives a signal to the executioner, and as the day ends, so does the prisoner's life. What happens when you try to pitch a pyramid scheme to the sharks on Shark Tank? Andy Nayakis appeared on Dragon's Den, which is the British version of Shark Tank, and asked for an investment of $175,000 for his business named Lioness. He claimed Lioness to be a cashback card where users would get 20 to 40% back on any purchase, which is obviously impossible. According to Andy's business model, he sat at the top and investors profited every time they brought someone new into the business. Once Andy claimed that the investors would earn their share of the pie by getting users to sign up for the network, it became clear that Lioness was neither a service nor a product. The whole pitch fell apart when Andy claimed that his company hadn't been able to return a single dollar. Arlene, one of the investors, could easily visualize how the business model was forming a pyramid. In truth, Andy was luring the investors into a pyramid scheme. The large amounts of returns he promised the investors never really existed. Your house is probably worth more than the house of Elon Musk. That's right, the world world's richest man lives in a $50,000 house. Elon's house is so tiny that it can be transported on a trailer and assembled in just 1 hour. The house is built by Boxable, a company dedicated to solving the housing crisis with affordable and compact casitas. The Boxable house is extremely energy efficient as it's made with insulation technology and utilizes LED lighting. In just 400 square feet of space, the house includes a kitchen, bathroom, and a small lounge. The house also features a dual-sided TV, a washing machine, and various other electrical appliances and necessities. Elon's tiny house is located on the SpaceX launch site in Boca Chica, Texas, and Elon actually rents the house from SpaceX. People considered it a joke when Elon tweeted in 2020 saying, "I will own no house." But he lived up to his word and sold all his real estate assets worth $100 million, and now lives in this $50K tiny house. The real reason why the McDonald's ice cream machines are always broken is not because the employees are lazy and do not bother cleaning the machines. It is way deeper and more corrupt than that. McDonald's requires franchise owners to use Taylor ice cream machines. With a variety of buttons and no text explaining their purpose, Taylor machines feature a confusing interface. Moreover, the machines have been reported to show unclear error signals, giving no clues about the actual error. As a consequence, these machines break down frequently. However, the catch is, according to their contract, franchise owners are only allowed to call Taylor technicians for fixing a Taylor ice cream machine. A leaked invoice showed that Taylor technicians charged $144 for just 30 minutes and up to $400 for every additional 15 minutes of repairing. Moreover, 25% of Taylor's revenue is generated from repair services. To conclude, Taylor intentionally keeps its ice cream machines prone to breakdowns, thus profiting from the inevitable repairs. This couple sold their company for $850 million and bought it back just 5 years later for $1 million. In 2005, Michael and Sochi Birch launched Bebo. It was an early social media site that competed aggressively with Facebook and MySpace. It was able to amass 45 million users, which caught the attention of struggling giant AOL. AOL dropped $850 million to buy Bebo in an attempt to stay relevant. However, it quickly became clear that Bebo would not be able to compete with upstarts like Facebook and Twitter. Just 2 years after being valued at nearly $1 billion, AOL sold Bebo for a price of $10 million. When the company that bought Bebo filed for bankruptcy a few years later, the founders swooped back in and bought the company for just $1 million. They proceeded to turn Bebo into a live streaming website and sold it to Twitch in 2019 for $25 million. Today we're going to be talking about how The Wizard of Oz is actually considered a cursed movie. Judy, who was only 17, was drugged and molested during the filming of the movie. There has been countless amounts of reports that she was molested and sexually harassed by both the Munchkin actors and studio executives. Next, the actress that plays the Wicked Witch got horrifically burned during filming. During the scene where the Wicked Witch escapes Munchkin Land in a plume of smoke, the pyrotechnics team accidentally set off the explosion a little too early. This led to the actress's broom, hair, and makeup to catch on fire. Medics had to use alcohol to remove her toxic makeup, which was extremely painful due to her burns. Genius people who beat the system. Up until 2019, women were not allowed to attend soccer matches in Iran. But in 2018, these 5 girls successfully snuck into a championship soccer game disguised as men. Next, some schools don't allow guys and girls to be in their dorm rooms together, but this couple came up with a very creative solution to still hang out and watch movies together. Next, a mayor in Brazil prohibited bar owners from setting tables on the sidewalk. So the bar owners came up with an amazing solution that honestly looks pretty dangerous but also fun. Lastly, this man from Turkey was banned from his favorite soccer team stadium for a year, but he wasn't going to let that stop him from missing an important game. So he rented a crane and raised himself high enough so he could see the game, and he even led the crowd in a chant. Genius people who beat the system. A girls' college had a rule that said you can't have carved pumpkins in your dorm room, but the rule didn't say anything about pineapples, so she went ahead and carved one of those. Next, this guy's new job required a photo of him in a suit for their website, but since he doesn't own a suit, he just photoshopped his face over this guy's face, and honestly, it looks pretty real, so I can't blame him. Next, this sign says no bicycle riding, rollerblading, roller skating, skateboarding, or scooter riding, but it doesn't say no unicycling, so he isn't exactly breaking the rules. Next, these signs say that if you park on this side, you have to pay for parking, and if you park on the other side, you will get towed. So this guy parked in between both of the signs, so he doesn't have to do either. That's pure genius. Next, a guy posted this photo online and said whenever he parks illegally, he puts a fake ticket on his windshield so the cops won't give him a real one. That's pretty creative. Genius people who beat the system. First up, a class of students were required to pick a Marvel character and then write a resume and cover letter pretending to be them. A student thought of the perfect idea and picked Groot, and since all he says is, "I am Groot," that's what he put for everything. Next, a girl's mom locked her phone in the bottom drawer because she misbehaved. But her daughter realized that all she had to do was take out the top drawer and she could get her phone back. Next, a girl's dad went to Vegas for 5 days and put a camera in the living room to make sure she didn't have any parties. But the girl wasn't going to let that stop her, so she came up with this pretty creative solution. Next, this parking spot says only green vehicles can park there, but I think the owner of this car took that a little too serious. Next, this kid was playing a game on his laptop when his mom told him to go play outside, so he literally grabbed his laptop and played outside. Genius people who beat the system. This student was only allowed to have a 1-page cheat sheet, so they wrote a whole page of notes in blue pen and another page in red pen. They then brought 3D glasses to class, so when they look through the blue side, they can see the red pen, and when they look through the red side, they can see the blue pen. Next, a couple's landlord said that they couldn't paint the walls in their apartment, so they got hundreds of paint strips and covered the walls with them. Next, a teacher wouldn't allow students to eat in class, so a kid filled his empty lip balm with cheese so he could sneak it in. Next, this kid was asked to name the country that owns Greenland. Hint, it's not Greenland, so he put not Greenland and the teacher actually marked it right. Next, this kid's mom told him that food wasn't allowed in the living room and his tablet wasn't allowed in the kitchen, so it's safe to say that he beat the system. Biggest movie mistakes you never noticed. First up in the movie Zootopia, there's one obvious mistake that most people have never noticed. In this scene where Judy is on the phone with her parents, you can clearly see that the time says 8:40 p.m. But then just a couple of seconds later, when she puts her phone down, you can see it says 9:44 p.m. How does that even happen? Next, in the movie Inside Out, there's one mistake I'm shocked made the final cut. In this scene where Riley is running through her living room, you can see a white cable running along the floor. But just moments later, when we see the cable again, all of a sudden it's black. For something like that to happen, the editing team would have to reanimate the cable to be a different color, but why would they do that? Next up is Big Hero 6, and the mistake in this one is very similar to the last one. In this scene where Hero meets Professor Callahan, you can see his shirt is blue, but when he reaches out, it turns red, and then it turns back to blue again. I honestly have no words for that one. This European general may not be widely known in America, but he was one of the most impressive generals to have ever lived. Jan Žižka was a Czech general born in 1360 who led forces against 3 crusades and never lost a single battle. He was such a badass they made a blockbuster action movie about him called Medieval. It's an R-rated, gritty, violent, and entertaining movie starring Ben Foster and Michael Caine that is a definite must-watch. His armies fought with makeshift weapons to defeat heavily armed opponents who always vastly outnumbered his own troops. His tactics were unorthodox and innovative, to say the least. He essentially created the medieval version of the tank, 500 years before the tank was invented. The armored war wagons he used allowed his troops to defend from oncoming cavalry and infantry attacks. Oh, and he won his battles with only one good eye since he lost vision in one early in his life. If that's not impressive enough, he remained undefeated on the battlefield after going completely blind in both eyes later in his life. Make sure you go and see Medieval in theaters this weekend. Will humans ever be able to teleport? Well, believe it or not, teleportation is actually already possible, and I don't mean theoretically possible, but actually possible. The bad news is, it's a little bit different than what is shown in movies and TV shows. It isn't full-on human teleportation, but rather it is quantum teleportation, which is the transfer of information. It lets us transfer information on the quantum level between things that are not physically linked, meaning we could potentially use this technology to teleport the entire molecular makeup of an entire human being, and use that perfect blueprint to build an exact copy somewhere else far away, which is basically teleportation. But there's actually an easy way to teleport right now if you want. If you get Genshin Impact, you can unlock waypoints that allow you to teleport instantly across 4 huge regions. Sumeru, the last region, is now available with the 3.0 version update. In case you haven't heard about Genshin Impact, it's a free-to-play open-world elemental strategy combat game that has won multiple Mobile Game of the Year awards, but it's also available on multi-platforms. Click here on my profile to get it. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In 2016, engineers at Nissan created the office chairs of the future. By linking each chair to Wi-Fi and adding motorized wheels, the engineers were able to create an army of chairs that tuck themselves away at the clap of the hand. Next, Snappy Screen has made protecting yourself from the sun easier than ever. The machine spins you around and coats you in a perfect layer of sunscreen. You can choose your desired SPF, and the booth comes with disposable shades to keep the sunblock from getting in your eyes. Next, students from the University of Washington Washington created a pair of gloves that can translate the physical movements of sign language into spoken language. Now, people without the ability to vocalize can communicate with non-sign language speakers easier than ever. Next, scientists at Disney have developed a special charger that can be built into the very walls of certain rooms. These rooms can charge up to 10 devices by reverberating electromagnetic waves off of metal walls. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. Starting off in South Korea, some red traffic lights have a countdown delay that shows you how long it will be until it turns green.
And it has been proven to reduce the accident rate by more than 50%.
Next, you can say goodbye to hard-to-reach wall sockets with the Rambler socket. The Rambler socket has an extension cord built into the wall itself and can also be used the normal way. It contains about 5 feet of extra cabling and only requires a gentle tug to coil it back into the wall. Next, the Let's Pizza vending machine is the only machine in the world that can prepare Italian pizza from scratch in under 3 minutes. And the machine actually offers 4 different varieties of pizzas. Next, with this adjustable hot sauce, you can pick your spice levels. The clever device mixes a blend of mild and hot sauce, so all you have to do is twist the cap and select the level of heat you want. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. Some elevators in Asia have giant buttons on the floor that you can kick to mark what floor you're going to. This was designed to help people who are carrying things and can't press the buttons with their hands. Next, there's a mall that lets you leave your dog in a safe spot while you shop. The spot has a security system so that only you could open them, as well as lighting and air conditioning. Next, in the United States, there's a shoe store that lets you test the shoes on different surfaces. The test box includes gravel, asphalt, and even materials like Legos. Next, there's restaurants that give you a controller with 3 buttons. The first button is to let the waiters know when you're ready to order. The second button is to let them know when you're ready to pay. And the third button is to cancel your order. The idea is to avoid waiters from constantly asking you if you're ready to order.